All right, a good Saturday to you. Thanks for joining us here on YouTube. I'm meteorologist John Dawson. This is the Fox 26 Tropical Update just for YouTube. Glad you found us here on the social media, and we're here every day of hurricane season. And while things seem relatively quiet, I think that's just kind of the U.S. vibe that's going on right now, because we've been seeing quite a bit of activity recently out in the Atlantic, but nothing's really been creeping too close to the U.S. coastline in recent days. Certainly there's been some activity, but again, for recent, it has been a bit quiet. But then we have two tropical storms right now that are churning away out there in the Atlantic. But fortunately, their expectations are that they're going to pretty much stay out in the Atlantic. And Rina is really not going to be with us very much longer either, is something to kind of keep in mind. So we've got Rina and we've got Philippe. Now, of course, Philippe's been around for a while for sure, and it's one that's going to stay around for a bit longer as well. So just to let you know, this is what the National Hurricane Center is keeping an eye on right now, and we use our tropical outlook. Normally I'm showing you some certain areas where the Hurricane Center is identifying as potentially developed. That's why we kind of have this bar across the top here. You know, they're shaded in yellow or orange or red. Well, we don't have any of those because no other tropical cyclone formation is expected over the next 7 days. And 7 days from now gets us into October, and that certainly starts lowering our chances, historically speaking, of seeing U.S. landfalls. It's not zero by any means, but we like how things are going here at the end of September and getting into October. Certainly the way things are progressing as far as where we're seeing the activity and where we're not seeing the activity right now. All right, let's dive into things a little bit more. We're going to start with Philippe. And you'll notice right away here when you look at the rain that we're seeing. Again, this is primarily what you see with these cloud tops with this IR imagery. You're seeing where those heavier rains are concerned. If you want to see a storm develop and strengthen, you want to see that all the way around the center of that low pressure. Can you see the line here of the track on where Philippe's gone? Just almost slammed on the brakes here. Kind of went a little north, back to the south, to the northwest, back to the south, over to the west, kind of just wandering around almost, it seems like, in the Atlantic. And finally, we're getting a little bit more of a traditional looking path here when we get a little further down the line. Maximum sustained winds right now at 50 miles an hour, and we're going to stay pretty much steady strength, just gradually getting a little bit stronger until we get into Tuesday. And then we'll probably be hurricane strength on Tuesday, and then going to stay that way, it looks like, for another 3 or 4 days, and then continuing on even longer for the most part. Remember, these are 5-day forecast cones from the National Hurricane Center. So that's why we got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then probably even going to keep it going a little bit further once we get towards the end of the week. So again, this is where it's heading where we want it to head, staying out in the Atlantic. Switching gears now, let's take a look at Rina. Now, Rina is not going to last a whole lot longer, and you can see really not even a whole lot to show around where this center of low pressure is. Currently, the sustained winds are around 45 miles an hour. When we get to tomorrow at this time, they're expected to be 35 miles an hour. Give it another 24 hours on Monday, and it's down to 30 miles an hour. So the weakening has certainly begun for Rina. There's winds that it's wrestling with. There's a little bit of drier air, I think, out there, but more importantly, those cooler temperatures also kind of helping it to lose some of its fuel. So maximum sustained winds at 45 miles an hour. And for the folks over in Bermuda, this is the really only land even close to it. Enough of a distance there that they're not going to be worried about Rina. Now, Philippe is sort of a different situation. So, twin tropical storms, about 500 miles apart. So this is kind of unusual, not something that we see all of the time, where we have two named storms that are in this close proximity to each other. Now, I talked a little bit about how we were using that IR imagery, where you see the reds and the coloration that's in there, and it's sort of showing how powerful, how strong those storms are building by the height that they're building. What we can also talk about is visible imagery. Now, again, with the IR, if infrared, it's using technology to kind of scan what's there and give us a description of what's happening. But visible imagery would basically be if you just went up there yourself, up in the satellites, and were looking down on things, it's what your eye would see or what a camera would see. So I'm going to switch to that now, and you'll notice a little brightening and dimming here, especially at the end of our set. This is where we would have sunset. So basically we're losing daylight here. That's why this is getting less bright. It's because the sun has moved around and is beginning to see darkness take this part of the Atlantic Ocean. So that's why you see the changing in colors here, and you don't see that with infrared because, again, it doesn't matter if it's day or light. It's using an infrared beam to shoot down and kind of look at things. This is just like you had a camera or if you were up there looking down. But look what you can see with the visible imagery that's not really showing up on that IR imagery, and that's that rotation. See, here's Rina. See that spin that's happening right there within the clouds? That's where Rina is. And we talked about Philippe, all of the rain happening over to the eastern side of the center of low pressure. You can kind of make out that spin a little bit. So that's why it's always helpful to use multiple different ways to kind of look at things. And there's a lot of other instruments and things that the National Hurricane Center is looking at when they try to examine on what's happening out there. But I just kind of wanted to show you that a little bit. That visible imagery really does help to kind of show that spin where it makes it look a little bit more like a tropical system. Those other images that we were looking at didn't really look very tropical. And even Philippe, which is better organized, still doesn't really look that tropical on the IR. But again, you can get to see that spin, and you can see that most of that rain is over here. Those are some of the upper level winds that it's fighting kind of to help do that. All right, switching to a forecast model now. What our computers think these two systems are going to do over the next 5 days or so. First of all, Rina's not going to last that long. As we move forward, these icons on here match the track of the National Hurricane Center. So the icons are not matching the model. You can just see the model. That's that closed center of circulation. So the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center is not perfectly lined up with the model, which is what it's supposed to be, because the National Hurricane Center is full of humans who are making these decisions and creating these forecasts, and not just a bunch of zeros and ones being spit out by a computer that is creating it. So that's why you're going to see a little bit of a difference between what the model shows and what the National Hurricane Center's forecast is showing. So again, here's Rina. We get to Monday afternoon. It's finished. We're no longer tracking that necessarily. There's remnants of it, if you will. And then when we get to Tuesday morning, that's when enough organization and enough wind speed is increased that we're now talking about a hurricane in Philippe, not just tropical storm Philippe, and a much more northerly track begins to take place. Now, this is a bit of a spread here between the European model and what the Hurricane Center is doing, but if you'll notice, it's basically the same sort of trends that are happening. That is taking a northerly track, and we've just sort of slid it over a little bit more to the east is what the experts there in the Hurricane Center think, and using, again, some other models to kind of help put all this together. And I certainly think that it's far enough away from the East Coast that there's not a big concern as far as the difference there that's happening, and these systems do appear to want to stay out into the Atlantic. All right, I know you've been checking your calendar. Tomorrow is October, all right? So we have made it to the end of September, and those numbers are going to drop off quite quickly. Of course, when we get to the middle of October is where we see the real dramatic drop, but we are seeing a bit of a drop already once we get to October 1 and 2, and or 1st and 2nd, so we'll kind of see how we progress here through the rest of the hurricane season. Hey, the other day I mentioned, for those folks who are following or who always check in here on YouTube, we've got a lot of faithful viewers, that if you wanted to find me on Instagram, it would be great to connect, and we could go ahead and sort of exchange some comments even. That's sort of the best way to kind of reach me. So if you get a chance and you want to connect a little bit more, let me know where you're from, because I know we've got got folks from all over the world who are really checking in. It's not just the United States. It's not just us here in Southeast Texas. We've definitely got folks that are watching. And I definitely would enjoy connecting with you, and we'll see if we can do that on Instagram. Instead of trying to just bounce all over all the social media, we'll just stick with Instagram on how to do that. I'm most active there. I'm most interactive there, and I hope you're interactive as well. Plus, all my hurricane gear tests are there, so that's always fun to kind of check those out. All right, that does it for Saturday. As mentioned, I'll be back here tomorrow with your Sunday update.